Just waiting on the 2 beeps here. All right, well, I'm going to just do my miss them then. So welcome everybody to Hiring the Right People by Joe Webb. This is part of 24 Hours Have Passed. This is the Summit preview. I am your moderator, Brandon Leach. I will be taking questions and fielding them to Joe. We're going to collect all those and do them right at the end for you in the last 15 minutes or so. Joe, can you hit the next slide? Thank you, sir. So a couple quick things. If you need technical assistance, please put that right in the chat pane there. It'll be right in the same area as you see attendees, dashboard, audio, etc. If you put your questions in there, I'll be happy to try to help you out. Also, there is a button on the top of the presentation window that will allow you to maximize your screen. And there's also a Zoom option there as well. For normal questions relating to the session, please also put those in the questions pane as well. Next slide, please. Thank you, sir. All right, so 24 Hours Have Passed is brought to you by Microsoft and Dell Software, two great companies. Please feel free to check out the links below, DocumentDB, and well, Dell Software has a ton of stuff. So hopefully all of you are prepping for the summit in Seattle well, this year. So this is going to be, as the slide mentions, is a huge gathering of SQL Server and BI folks. I go every year, and I'll tell you, it's one of the best times you're going to have, both professionally and just personally. It's a lot of fun. You learn a ton. Over 190 sessions, people from 52 countries networking. It is a boon. Right now there's a discount code to get $200 off. That is discount code 24HOP14. So 24 hours have passed 14. I highly recommend you use it. The ticket price will go up on September 26th. All right, next slide, please. All right, here's the last one, guys, and then Joe will take over. So Joe Webb has been the Chief Operating Manager for Webb Tech Solutions. Sorry about that, Joe. He's been here for 17 years in the industry, and he focuses on business process analysis, improvement, database design, architecture, software development. So basically a really well-rounded developer. And he also does a good amount of technical training. So I really hope you enjoy this session. Joe, it's all yours.
Hey, I appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the 24 Hours Have Passed. I hope it's been a good afternoon for you, and that the sessions you've been able to attend have been well worth your while. I would like to echo what Brendan had said earlier. You know, as a former board member for PASS, was actually the EVP of PASS, EVP of Finance for PASS for a while, and Microsoft MVP and so forth, and to most every summit that we have had, and you know, it's almost counterintuitive. The bigger the summit gets, the more closely tied feel to everyone else in it. So it is truly one big happy family. I'd encourage you, if you've never been, to give it a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Today, I'm going to speak for the next 40 or 45 minutes or so, and give you a preview of a session that I am doing in Seattle this year for the summit. and that is hiring the right people, interviewing and selecting the right team. And I'll tell you, the genesis for this harkens back to really my very first job out of college. That was roughly 20 years ago, and that would have put me at about 6. No, I'm kidding, of course, but I was working for a small software company, and this software company developed software for the pharmacy industry. The kind of software where you go up to the pharmacist's counter and it keeps patient profile information, does drug interaction checking, dose checking, authenticates with third party, for insurance purposes and so forth. And we had this software that, purported to run on 2 different operating systems. One of them was a fairly obscure operating system, and the other one was AIX. I say purported because realistically, in the AIX world, we had to run it through an interpreter, and it just realistically didn't work very well through that interpreter. When we ran that software through the interpreter, a lot of odd things would happen, a lot of anomalies would happen, and so we, the people who were, I was just a young programmer at the time, not very experienced or seasoned or anything, and absolutely had very few responsibilities. But those who were in charge decided that what we needed to solve this problem, what we needed more than anything, was a hotshot firefighter who knew AIX inside and out, who could help us make sure that our software, because the software was fine, but make sure our software ran and was configured properly in that interpreter in the AIX world. And so they scoured, the major cities throughout the U.S., and our part-time HR person did a lot of research and posted, newspaper advertisements. This was before, Career Builder and some of those others that are out there, Monster and all those, and found what we believe to be just an absolutely outstanding guy. This guy, according to his resume, was, he practically developed AIX. And so they hired him, and it was a week or more before I actually met him, because instead of reporting to the office the first day, we put him directly on a plane and sent him to San Francisco to visit one of the customers to solve the day, to solve the problem and save the day. Unfortunately, we did not get the firefighter that we thought we were going to get. The firefighter on the paper would have solved our problems greatly. Instead, we got something very, very different than what we were expecting. And that cost us quite a bit. We did not at all receive the technical expertise that we thought we were going to get. This guy could barely spell AIX, and yet we put him in front of one of our most valued customers, and that customer we lost a lot of face in front of that customer. And so there was plenty of blame to go around for that. There were a lot of bad decisions. He obviously had hired somebody to help him write a resume, and we obviously had not done our job interviewing him well, certainly didn't do a good job in vetting him well, and then immediately before he even saw our system, we put him on a plane to San Francisco to be in the hot seat in front of a ever-growing, frustrated client. And so, realistically, that cost our company quite a bit. Not only did we go through the process of hiring somebody that was not well suited for our organization, we went through the hard costs of a job search. We went through the hard costs of paying him a relocation package. But there were a lot of other things that it cost us, and some of those are opportunity costs. Some of those were things like we were in a hurry up and wait mode while he ramped up and became much more familiar. There were onboarding costs. There were insurance costs. There were things to bring him up to speed so that he could learn our systems. And there was a lot of cynicism that developed after that. You know, if our company just paid top dollar for this guy because he's the, quote, best and brightest, you know, what were their impressions of us? This guy was not really strong, and yet, for some reason, he's making more than us, and, you know, so there was a lot of cynicism, and eventually, I'm not saying because of this, but eventually the company ended up going bankrupt. Now, had we hired the right individual, would they have still gone bankrupt? Well, hard to say. You know, there's a lot of what-ifs that could play out, but certainly hiring the wrong individual did not help matters at all. And so that story that I just, you know, relayed to you, I think, you know, if I ask around, and when I've helped other companies hire people since then, I find that this frequently happens, even though that story is 20 years old. The same thing is happening today. And, you know, why does that happen? Well, in our mind, we get this great idea about what this new hire is going to have. In our case, we needed a firefighter, somebody who's going to come in and save the day. But a lot of times what we do is we paint this picture of what the new person we want to have join our team looks like. And I certainly don't mean it in a physical sense or anything like that, but we paint this picture of the qualifications, how this person is going to fit in, what his knowledge or her knowledge is going to be. And so we create this idea of what this individual will be to our organization, and then we try our best to wrap it around and to quantify that and qualify that in a job description. Sometimes we have one written up already. Sometimes we go and cut and paste and create one based on a variety of other job descriptions that we've seen out there. And we start the interview process. We start the research process, and, you know, either HR or somebody narrows it down for us, and we decide to take it the extra mile. So we go and we check out their LinkedIn profile. We want to make sure that the recommendations they have, the skills that they have listed there, are consistent with what we would like to see in this person. Now, if you have a LinkedIn profile, you know that recommendations don't necessarily mean a great deal, and certainly the skills that are listed mean very little. I have had people in my profile list me as a data warehousing expert. I can barely spell BI, but yet I am, according to my LinkedIn profile and people who have made skill recommendations for me, ascribe technologies to me that I don't know and would be ill-suited for. So we know this. Anybody with a LinkedIn profile knows this. So we take it a step further and we look to see if this candidate has blog posts that we can consider. We want to see what his or her writing style is like. Can they explain things well? But realistically, people who create blogs, sometimes they may not be the most forthright, and so that we could get a misconception from that. So we look at their Twitter feed, see if there's if they're going to say anything, what the kinds of things they say, if they're going to embarrass us, what their attitudes are. We check out their Facebook to see if they've ever posted things that would embarrass the company. Do they have a whole lot of pictures from college parties that they really now regret posting? Check out, maybe they have a YouTube channel. We do some other social medias like Tumblr and Bebo and some of these other things, and we really believe at this point maybe we've got a fairly comprehensive picture of what this person is, who they are, what they can offer us. But I think there was a a song a while back, and I must admit I'm not a huge country music fan, but somebody mentioned this to me a while back, and I think there was a country music singer called Brad Paisley, and I may be misattributing this, but I think he had a song called "I'm So Much Cooler Online," and that can be true. An online profile, even a composite profile based on a number of different social media, it does not necessarily accurately, even today, represent what that person can bring to our organization. So we need to take it a little further and do a little more investigation on and make sure that we're hiring the right person. Now, I remember reading, and it's been about a year ago, and unfortunately I haven't been able to dig up the reference. And if I can find the reference, I'll certainly post it. But in a survey that was done, I believe, by one of the big surveying houses, it was really interesting that roughly one out of four CIOs said that if they could get rid of their entire IT department and start from scratch, if somehow they could wave a wand and they didn't have anybody and they could hire all brand new personnel, they would do it. And that's staggering to me, that one out of four almost would completely punt their entire IT department. So when you consider this, regardless of your level, whether you are the senior DBA and you have very little authority in terms of hiring, but you interview for the technical experience, or you are somewhere much higher than that. You're a senior manager, you're the director of IT, director of data operations or storage or something like that, or even higher in the organization. Hiring is one of the most important jobs that you have as a leader. You know, for a director of IT, just about the most important job, one of them is certainly creating a culture that allows your employees to thrive and to succeed and to do their jobs. And it is extremely difficult to do that if you have hired the wrong people. So think about, what if we were able to hire the right person the first time? You know, again, I don't know what would have happened to that company that I described before if we'd have hired the right person, but surely it would have been better than the person that we did hire. So imagine if we could do that. Imagine if we had the ability to determine who would be the best hire for this position. If we could actually have a process by which to measure someone and determine who would be a good fit. So over the years, as I have helped companies hire people, I've been self-employed as a consultant for 17, 18 years now, and have during that time interviewed probably hundreds of different people for various clients. That's never been my primary job. I'm not an HR person, but I have helped companies hire directors of IT, senior managers, and of course database people and individual contributors. And one of the things that I shared with my clients from the very beginning is something that I've called the 4 C's of hiring, or 4 C's of interviewing. And those are listed there on the screen: competency, compatibility, character, and coachable. Those are the 4 aspects, the 4 things or facets that I look for when I meet someone who is seeking a job with a company that I'm representing. And so we'll spend the next few minutes kind of digging into those a little bit, and I'll tell you maybe how you can take these 4 C's and apply them to people that you meet and to people that you're interviewing. So the first one, obviously, is one that we almost always think of first, and that is competency. When I'm looking to hire someone, we need to make sure that they have the basic knowledge and skills that are going to be required to do the job. if we're looking to hire a senior database administrator, we don't need somebody who doesn't know the difference between SQL Server and the sequel to a movie. We need somebody who understands what database processing and the context of that is. We need someone who understands, SQL Server, maybe has a certain number of years of experience with it, and things like that. But no one is going to have all of the knowledge that is going to be required. They're not going to know our systems. We may have, if you're a fairly large organization, we may have, SharePoint, Microsoft CRM, maybe some other accounting packages, maybe some non-Microsoft, maybe even some homegrown systems that are fairly complex and pervasive within our organization. No one is going to have all of the experience that is going to be required, or all of the familiarity with systems that are going to be required to succeed. But they have to have that fundamental set of skills that will allow them to learn what they need to be able to succeed. Compatibility is typically the next thing that we think of, and unfortunately that is something that most often when we go through this process, and unless we've given a great deal of thought about it, unfortunately that frequently comes down to, did you like the person? Did the interviewer connect with, or did he not connect with the person sitting across the table? They don't really have frequently a good way, a systematic approach to determining how compatible this person is. And a few minutes towards the end of the session, we'll talk about one way to measure this. But from a compatibility perspective, realistically, we're looking at a couple of different things. One, we want to make sure that this candidate can and will complement the team that we have. We want to make sure that we are not hiring just someone who's going to think exactly like we think, do exactly like we do. We would like this individual to complement our existing team members. We'd like them to have new, different experiences, a broader set of experiences than we currently have, and will be able to raise the bar or add value to our team. We don't want somebody that is exactly like all the other people on our team. If we have that, then that person's going to have a very difficult time adding value to our team. But by the same token, we also don't want someone who's going to cause, unproductive disharmony within our team. We need the team to be able to work together in a professional manner. They don't have to be best friends. They don't have to enjoy each other's company outside of, the business. But we do want to make sure that they can at least, they have the professionalism to work, to be able to work together. And we need to be mindful of those team dynamics. If someone, if you get the sense someone is very brusque and uses a lot of colorful language, and the culture that you have fostered within your organization is not consistent with that, then there may be some disharmony and a lot of angst within your team. Not saying, one or the other. I'm just saying, if there's a vastly different outlook on the, quote, professionalism, that may cause some different challenges for you within the team dynamics. Something that unfortunately is frequently overlooked is the character aspect. And when you look at over the past 10 or 12 years. A lot of the corporate scandals that have happened, going back, a long time to Enron and all of those, MCI going more recently to some of the other pyramid schemes of Bernie Madoff and so forth. Character does matter. Corporate character matters, character of the leadership at the very top matters, and character from there on down matters. So, a lot of the people who are, attending this session and who participate in past, either at the summit or through, the year-round activities, through virtual chapters or physical chapters, things like that, we're database people. If you're a database administrator, you have SA or sysadmin privileges, you've essentially got the keys to the kingdom. Now, a lot of times, organizations will, there'll be a division of responsibilities and so forth and a set of checks and balances. But to some degree, you're going to have to trust your admin, and that's going to go down to, come down to the character of that individual. And so we need to figure out a way to make sure that we can trust that person, that that person's character is consistent with the character of the company that we're considering hiring him to fill a role in. And companies do indeed have a set of values and the character, and we will need to make sure that that's consistent. And there's really two aspects to that, to trust. And I like what Stephen Covey said in one of his books many years ago, and that is, there's really the concept he promoted through that book was, for trust, there's really two aspects, or two sides of the coin, if you will. There's the one aspect of trust is, can he or she do what he says he can do? So is the person sitting across the table from us, do we believe that he can, does he physically or intellectually have the capabilities to do what he says he can do? That's one thing. The second aspect, or second facet of trust, is will he? Do we believe that this person will follow through on what he said he will do? One person may believe that he can do something, but not actually have the ability to do that. The other aspect, though, is someone may have the ability to do something, but we've got to trust that they will do it. We've got to trust that they will set up the system correctly, that they will actually be working remotely when they say they're working remotely. So we have to consider the character of individuals. We also want to consider how coachable they are. And that is, there are an awful lot of IT people who, have earned a reputation of being very arrogant, being, almost condescending or belittling to the business owners or their customers, internal, external, etc. There's an old saying, it's what you learn after you know it all that matters. And so we need to determine if this candidate has a coachable heart or a coachable spirit. Do they believe they know everything already? Do they believe they know everything already in terms of technology? And what about leadership and professionalism? What about customer service? Do they have a coachable spirit? Are they going to be willing to accept feedback and guidance from either you as their manager or from whoever their manager is, but you as maybe the team lead or the technical lead? Are they open for growth? Are they open to change? Do they believe that their processes are the best and they don't have to follow the processes of the existing company? whether that's change requests or anything else. You know, they believe that they can implement something into production without going through QA and a staging environment. Those sort of things are going to cause you problems down the road, and we want to learn their perspective on that up front. We also would like, particularly if we're hiring a more seasoned person, we'd also like that person to have a coaching spirit, someone who's willing to not only openly receive feedback and try to get better, even if they're the best and brightest in the field, there's always something more to learn. But we also want that person to be willing to share what he has learned or she has learned with others in our organization. So how can we do this? How can we look for the 4 C's of hiring? What process can we do? How can we systematically do that? Well, unfortunately, most organizations, or many I should say, organizations don't do a very good job in leveraging the interview. The interview in many, I shouldn't say most, but in many organizations, the interview is almost tantamount to speed dating. You know, in a speed dating, and I've never done speed dating, so I'm having to guess here. But you know, the concept of speed dating is you get a bunch of men and a bunch of women in a room with someone who rings a bell, and you have so many minutes, maybe 3 minutes with each person, and then you know, you move on to the next table. You interact with that person for 3 minutes. The bell rings, and you go on. And within that 3 minutes, you're supposed to decide whether or not you think you would enjoy going on a date with that person. Unfortunately, interviewing is frequently done like that in business today. You know, I've read all sorts of statistics and surveys that essentially say, you know, your resume has, if you're looking for a job and you create a resume, at most it's going to get 30 seconds of review before it's put down and moved on either into the pile for possibles or pile as in no way. 30 seconds. And when we interview someone, most often, or frequently I should say, that process, when we meet them face-to-face, within the first 2 minutes we've determined whether or not this is a good candidate or not. The way they look us in their eyes, the way they shake their hand, the way they answer questions, or the manner in which they speak. We frequently just use gut feelings. Do we like this person? And that's not a very good approach. That could be horribly, horribly misleading. So we need to make sure, we need to find a way to make sure that the person we're looking to hire, that it's a good fit, that they are going to fit into the team, that they're going to complement our existing team, and that this is a good place for them. Interviews should always be a two-way street. I've always encouraged people that I've counseled or coached who are interviewing to interview the company as well. Ask them tough questions. Tell me about your corporate culture. Tell me about your goals for the year. Things like that, because we want to make sure that it's a good fit both ways. If one side thinks it's not a good fit, it's not going to be successful for very long. We also want to make this process as repeatable as possible. You know, as technical people, most technical people have had the challenge of resolving a problem, whether you're trying to troubleshoot performance issues of a server, or you're trying to, as a developer, trying to figure out why an application is performing the way it is, or whatever. One of the cardinal rules of troubleshooting is don't change 2 things at once. If you change 2 things at once and the behavior is vastly different, then you don't know what caused that change. Likewise, if we don't have a repeatable process in interviewing, it's very difficult to compare multiple candidates to each other and see which one's going to be the best fit for the organization, because so many variables are in play. If we've interviewed one over lunch, the other one in a hotel, lobby, and another one in a corporate boardroom, and yet a fourth one maybe in your cube, those are vastly different environments, and it becomes a little more difficult to compare them, and their comfort level in all of those will be different. So we need a repeatable process if possible. And one of the ways I would encourage you to do that is first sit down at as high a level as you can and determine not only, just as you have done with the, more than likely with the job description. Job description typically focuses on areas of responsibility and technical requirements. What skills must they have, and what other experiences must they have. We also want to go in and take it a little deeper than that. We want to determine what kind of person are we looking for. What are the things that are important to us for this person to have? Do they need to have a servant leader heart? Are we more interested in their coachability? Is this someone that we want to train and bring up? We want to have a better understanding of the attributes or characteristics that this person needs to have in order to fit into our corporate culture well. And so one of the ways then, once you determine what you're looking for, the technical and other attributes, what you want to do is, I'm always a big advocate of 3 different types of questions. Frequently, the questions are things like, tell us your greatest strength, tell us a little bit about yourself, things like that, that are almost so commonplace that it's comical. There is a place for those to some extent, but you really don't get to know someone when they have read a book or gone online, 101 best answers to, typical interview questions. So I try to go beyond that and learn more about the person through 3 different types of questions. And we'll go through some of these types of questions over the next few minutes. One is scenario-based questions. Things like, with scenario-based questions, we want to dig into their past experiences and learn as much as we can about the individual through how they behaved or performed in the past. Although it's no guarantee for the future, it does give us some insight into in the way they tell these stories. It will give us some insight into their personality. So tell me about a team project that went well. Of course, we're interested in a project that went well. We want to know how they, if they rolled out a new ERP system or something like that. I'm typically, when I ask this question, far less concerned with the technology. I'm much more concerned with what I can read between the lines as they describe it. Do they take all the credit, or do they view this as a team effort? Do they throw somebody else under the bus so that they can make themselves look better? The things that you can learn as someone recounts a story can tell you a great deal about how much of a team player they are or are not. Another good one that I like to ask is, this scenario-based, is tell me about a time when you had to deliver bad news to your boss. Here, once again, I'm interested in their story, but I'm interested in kind of the subplots that may be revealed as they retell the story. I'm interested in, do they throw somebody else under the bus? Do they try to paint this in the best possible light? Nothing wrong with that, but to the point where they're exaggerating or indicate that they do not play well with others. I also like to ask questions that kind of highlights what motivates them or shine some light into what gets them excited. Why do they get up in the morning and want to do their job? So describe a time when you had to overcome significant obstacles to complete a project. What drove you or motivated you? I like to know what, and as best I can determine, is this someone that really thrives by solving problems? Is this someone that is energized by the accolades he's going to get for solving those problems, or does he enjoy solving it just for the sake of his own sense of accomplishment? So scenario-based, you ask them to describe something, some experience in their past, but rather than focusing on the technical aspect, focus on what you can learn within those questions and within the story. Are they a team player? What are their attitudes? Are they very cynical or skeptical? Not that that's necessarily a reason to rule someone out, but you need to be aware of how that's going to affect your corporate culture, and it may fit right in with your corporate culture. Abstract questions are another type of questions that I enjoy asking. These are a little different. These ask them not so much on past experiences, but to think and kind of go outside themselves. Kind of measures as best we can their emotional quotient or EQ. Also, how they believe others work with and think about them. So things like, how would someone from your team describe you? You're asking them to kind of step outside themselves and view themselves objectively if they can. Another one, how do you build rapport or credibility with your team or the key stakeholders? So asking them, again, how do they view their interactions with other people? How do they view the role that they're going to take on in your organization? Is it a supportive role, or is it they view it differently? And there's a lot of what-if type questions. If you were a character from a Disney movie, who would it be and why? All sorts of permutations there. You could not do a Disney movie. You could do what type of car would you be, or something else. And then again, it goes back to the why. Why would you do that? Why do you identify with Lightning McQueen or whatever? There's some other questions that I enjoy asking as well, and this is to see as best I can how they will respond how they will respond to questions they may not be expecting. Do they get flustered? How well do they handle things or think logically? And one of those is a variation of how do they think? Do they think logically? So you can ask questions like, how many quarters would you have to stack on top of one another to reach the height of the Empire State Building? See them kind of guesstimate. Well, how tall is this Empire State Building? How many floors is it? How many quarters per floor? If the floor is 14 feet between, that sort of thing. Have them kind of go through that so you can watch their logical thought process. Another one that I really like, and I actually learned this one from a friend of mine, Buck Woody, who works for Microsoft currently, has for a number of years. Teach me something that I don't know. Very few people are asked that in an interview, I have found. And when you ask them, it's not that works on a number of different levels. One, it typically not frustrates, but flusters them a little bit because they've not been asked that question before, so they have to come up with something to teach you. So you can see how they can respond to kind of a pressure situation. You also get to have some insight on how well they can communicate off the cuff, how they can think logically and then communicate that to you on something that they haven't really had a whole lot of time to prepare for. That's always a really interesting one to me. Now, getting close to the end here, I do want to mention a tool that that I have found very useful, both from my own personal experience, but also when hiring people, and that is at a little bit of a later stage, enjoy asking them to complete a DISC profile. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this, but this will help you as a tool that is an assessment tool that will help you understand how what people's natural tendencies are. Certainly, every one of us has the ability to change or manifest ourselves in different ways. But without thinking about it and without intentionally changing our behavior, most of us tend to gravitate towards one type of these DISC profile areas. The four are DISC, dominance, influential, steadfastness or steadiness, and conscientious. And brief overview of those is the dominant type is someone who is kind of take charge. They're kind of a drill sergeant. If you've ever, they like doing things. They like hurrying up and checking boxes off and moving on to the next one. They're very commanding in that respect. If you've ever, if you have a to-do list and you've ever done something that wasn't on your to-do list and you've written that down on your to-do list after the fact just so you could check it off, that's the high D coming out in. Influential is more like a sales type person, very, very much derives a lot of satisfaction in working with others, a lot of satisfaction in the emotional connection with others, very talkative, very optimistic, great thinking, obviously has a lot of grand ideas. The steadfastness is, someone who's kind of peace-loving. They like harmony. They like consistency. They listen well. They're very empathetic with other people. And the conscientious are people who are very rules-driven, rules-oriented. There's right and there's wrong. There's not a whole lot of gray. They are frequently belts and suspenders people, just in case. And so the reason I like this tool is it gives you some insight into the characteristics of this personality, the personality of the person sitting across from you. And if you've asked your team to do the DISC profile assessment and then you've reviewed those results with them, then you know how this person will fit in. Will they complement your team? Having a bunch of high Ds on your team is probably not what you want. You would like to balance those out with some people who are a little more steadfast and a little more cautious, conscientious, things like that. So having a good understanding of your team's DISC profiles and then the candidates' DISC profiles certainly well worth the effort in my opinion. Now, as we wrap up, it's kind of ironic that one of the things that we look for most often when we hire people are their technical skills. Can this person do what we've asked them to do? Are they a seasoned veteran, or can they do they have some programming experience or whatever? And often when it doesn't work out, it is not because of a lack of technical skills. Frequently, it is when things go wrong, it is we have not done a good job in vetting them up front and we hired the wrong person, or we've hired someone that's just not a good fit for this organization. We've hired someone that who clashes with our corporate culture, and we did not do a good job of understanding that ahead of time. So I do appreciate your attentiveness and your time this afternoon. I'm going to now turn it over to Brandon. If there were any questions along the way, we'll take those now.
All right, so I have one question here from Mel Vargas. That is, regarding the disk profile, would you look for somebody to the inline with the profiles of your team, or to be a little different to sort of round it up?
Ah, good question.
Oh, sorry, B, she says.
Say it again?
Sorry, she meant, would they be in line with the profiles of your team, or to be a little different to sort of round it up?
Gotcha, gotcha. Very good question, and my perspective on that is this. Let me describe, the high D as an example. Once again, the high D person, someone who has a strong D profile, as measured by the assessment tool, is someone who's kind of take charge. They like, they value getting things done. They typically will take a look at a situation and then immediately have either an intuitive idea of what should be done and are ready to execute on that. They typically get frustrated with delays. A high C, on the other hand, like I said before, is somebody who kind of values understanding the relationships that may happen. Kind of the joke about high C's is they are typically like ready, aim, 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 and they never get to the fire portion because by the time they get to that fourth or fifth aim, so many things have changed, we need to go back and analyze it again. So if you think about it in those perspectives, a high D can sometimes be very good for your organization. They're decisive and ready to move. On the flip side, though, they can rush into things that may be a mistake. It may be that they decide that they're tasked with selecting a new ERP system, and they spend an afternoon on Google and decide, hey, we're going to buy such and such. Whereas it really probably deserves a lot more time and consideration. We need to spend some time interviewing the various teams, understanding what our needs are, where to come up with a gap analysis between what we have and what we need, all of that. A high C, on the other hand, may never get to that decision point. They may analyze things to the point where by the time we're ready to make a decision, a new version is out, and so we've got to start over. So when you put a high C and a high D, for example, on a team together, they can balance each other out. They can, the C can slow the high D down and tell them we need to do some analysis and so forth. The high D can kind of nudge the high C to go ahead and make a decision, and let's set some timeline. Yes, we'll do some analysis, but by the end of September, we're going to have narrowed it down to the top 3 candidates, etc. So the same is also true for high I's and S's. I just use C's as an example, but high I's and S's also bring things to the table so that you don't have a very homogeneous team that is, but you can have a team. I prefer teams that are very different in their profiles if possible, so that they can complement one another. But that is where you need to make sure that they have a professional demeanor, so that they will complement one another in a productive way rather than spending time fighting and getting frustrated. So I hope that kind of makes sense.
Melsa's awesome explanation. So one last question as we're running short on time here. Can people fall into multiple disk profiles?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'll share with you, over time your disk profile can change, but typically people are dominant in, or have a, you're measured by numbers, and from 1 to 100 in each of those numbers, in each of those letters. For example, I am highest in my D characteristic, but I'm very close, followed by C. So, and then the third, which is unusual for most people, is that I is above the 60% line as well. So understanding that tells me that I typically can, I'm not wishy-washy. I know what I want to do and what the best solution is, I believe. I do use data to back that up. And when I'm trying to influence someone else, I typically fall back to using data. So understanding how you operate by default helps you, but also can help you with other people. I know we're running out of time. I will recommend a good book. I did not write it, and I get no profit from it, but there's a good book called Taking Flight. Look that up. It's about the disk profiles. It's a kind of a simple parable about birds, and then it kind of unpacks, at the second half of the book, it unpacks about each of those disk profiles. So I'd encourage you to do some more research on your own on there. Looks like we're about out of time, Brandon, so I'll turn it over to you to wrap up, and I do appreciate everyone's participation today, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you all in Seattle.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for attending. I'm going to make this wrap up as quick as I can. So you just heard Joe Webb talking about hiring and how to hire, basically, making sure you get the right candidates. Great talk. Thank you so much, Joe. Coming up next, we've got Chris Shaw and John Morehouse with Real World SQL 2014 Migration Path Decisions. This is going to be kind of important since, well, 2014 is the new version out, and I'm sure a lot of us are going to try to get there as soon as possible. So please, please jump into that one. Starts in exactly 2 minutes. All right. Again, one last thing, just a reminder about the PASS Summit. It's coming up in November. You can get $200 off the early bird price using the discount code. That code is 24HOP14. All right. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great night.